Good morning. I'm Mark Allen with Gaber.io, and I'm here today with Bill Kemp, the CEO and founder of United Space Structures. Good afternoon, Bill. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing well, thank you. So to start with, can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Sure. For the last 35 plus years, I've been designing mission critical facilities. These are hospitals, research facilities, command centers, but mostly a lot of tier 4 data centers that require redundant electrical and mechanical structural hardening and things like that. So complex buildings, not your run-of-the-mill office building. And it's challenging work, but I enjoy it. It's been great.
Very interesting. So normally I would go, I go a little differently, but I'm going to ask you today, what is the story behind United Space Structures? And just tell us, a little bit about the company and what your goal is.
Sure. Well, actually, United Space Structures, or USS, the ideas came from 1983. Back then, I was out of school and I was coming up with some interesting ideas. And I came up with an idea for robotic equipment to 3D print very large scale structures in microgravity of space to be able to create O'Neill cylinders or Stanford toruses, and structures that are large enough to spin and create artificial gravity. And so I started there, but I was way ahead of the marketplace. So I tucked those ideas in the back of my head. I'd drawn it up and written it up and things like that, but I knew the market wasn't ready. So we flashed forward to a year ago in October, and I came up with a new idea based on everyone's interested in going back to the moon and or Mars eventually. And that idea was building a large tower structure, a 25-story, 188,000 square foot tower, cylindrical tower, within a lava tube on the moon. And I chose moon's lava tubes because it's the safest place to go. Radiation is just a constant, never-ending problem, and then you have extreme temperature swings. So, having 30 to 50 meters of regolith overhead, it eliminates all those. And so your architecture becomes simpler because you don't have to build your architecture to withstand the radiation or the temperatures. You still have to make it so that it's airtight and can hold an atmosphere and so on and so forth. But so I came up with this idea, and I approached a space architect friend of mine, and he immediately got it, and he wanted to jump in with both feet without me, even asking him to. So we've been gathering a world-class team of people, a space lawyer who's been involved in starting up several space companies, and a guy who's been in finance for over 30 years, and now we're talking with investors, and so it's been exciting for the last year, but we have a lot more to do. We
Yes.
have 6 years of effort and design in order to start construction, and but the basis of the idea of the company is that it's a space design, construction, and real estate development company. And the idea is to build these facilities, own and operate them, and then lease them out short-term and long-term to a variety of tenants that want to have access to the moon consistently, safely. And these include, space miners and tourists and scientists, like NASA and ESA and all the other international agencies. And then, my background with data centers, we want to expand the internet out throughout the solar system, and we want to have data centers within all of our facilities, because not only are we going to be gathering information, our tenants and otherwise could be gathering information about the moon or for the moon and its operations, but we're also going to be going to clients here on Earth that have information that they want to either store or process in an ultra secure kind of way that regardless of what's happening on Earth, natural or man-made, they're always going to have access to that data. So think of the Library of Congress and all the things that they store there. Well, what if you had a backup on the moon?
Mhm.
So that's
Wow.
what we're going to be doing.
Wow. So when we talk about remote work, you're taking it to a whole different level, correct?
It's a whole different remote. I mean, there's a 2.5 second round trip delay, but you know, uh, work is wherever it needs to be, right? It doesn't have to be in an office. Like I used to work in an office,
Yes.
and it was great, and I enjoy it. And there's certain cultural benefits, you know, in being close to people and interacting with them in a casual and then business way. Um, and so the challenge is to figure out how to do that remotely, because you know COVID is here now, and it's probably going to be with us for another year or two. Uh, and hopefully people will take their vaccines when it becomes available and it is safe. But you know, I think we're going to have to rethink remote work and remote school, and because I don't think it's going to change too much afterwards. We're not going to go back to the old normal.
Mhm.
There's going to be a new normal, and I hope we can make it better. And so
Yeah, I agree. Well, maybe 10 years from now, you and I can do a podcast and one of us will be here and one of us will be on the moon. How's that sound?
exactly, yeah. Why
That
not?
would be really cool.
Sure.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm going to put it on my calendar. How's
Okay. Well, put it down for around 2031. That's what
2031? Okay.
we're thinking. You know, we'll be ready to occupy and tenants move in and things like that.
All right, we'll do like July 1st, 2031. How's that?
All right. Well, you know, when we get closer, we
Yeah.
can fine tune that.
Well, I don't want to
guess.
make it January 1st because, you know, it's,
No.
you always got to give that 6 month
Sure.
buffer.
Give us a little cushion just in case.
So back down to talking about remote work on Earth. What has been your experience as with remote employment, both as an employer and employee?
Well, my work remotely has actually been for the last like 8 years. So, and I'm quite used to it. My kind of business industry, the architecture, engineering, construction, AEC industry, um, we have clients and we have workers all over the country and the world, and so it's not unusual to time our meetings so that we can talk to people on the West Coast and also people in Europe at the same time. That's a kind of a narrow window based on the time zones and all that. But you know, I'm used to working remotely, even when I was in an office. You know, because even though we'd have a core team within the office, we'd still have other teams, specialists and contractors and clients and things like that that you know weren't in our office, and so you always had to stay in touch with them. We would have weekly meetings because you know things evolve quickly, and we need to get responses from everyone and what they need and what they don't have and what could be better and so on and so forth. So remote working is not a new thing for me. It happened way before COVID-19, but uh, so I'm kind of used to it. You know, I cut my teeth years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, so did I. So, well, what do you think is the future of remote employment then in general, you know, and what do you think can be done differently to make it more effective?
I think the future is going to be more virtual reality. I mean, you know, with the goggles or hopefully sunglasses or something less bulky,
Hmm.
or you know that kind of thing. You're going to need 5G or 6G communication rates, which everyone's promising to do that now with 5G. But you know the reality of the real 5G is not quite there yet. So it's not everywhere, and it really needs to be everywhere. So it's going to involve probably satellite and internet, and it's going to involve very high speed optical uh, systems, and it's going to involve virtual reality because you know people get exhausted on Zoom calls and things like that. Um, you know, it's the whole Brady Bunch thing, and from the screen, and uh, and while you have some visual feedback that you don't have on a phone call, you're still missing some aspects of how we interact with each other when we're in person, right? So having those cues, those visual cues that you only get when you're in front of somebody, is really important. So I think, virtual reality is most likely going to be a big part of it, but you know,
Go ahead.
integrating data and people and communication is going to be critical because, right now sharing screens can be sometimes clumsy,
Mhm.
and even people who've done it several times, it usually takes a few seconds to get their screen up and can you see it, and
Mhm.
can you hear me, and that kind of thing.
You're on
So
mute.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So more reliability is going to be important, also.
And I think they're working on it now. I know there's stuff, I'm in the Bay Area. I know there's stuff going on in Stanford, a lot of research going on there about VR and working remotely. So hopefully that stuff will, hopefully that will be expedited.
Yeah, I mean, either virtual reality and or augmented reality, where you can bring people into your physical space and see them as though they're really there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be VR exclusively, but you know, it's that level of interaction that's really required, I think.
Yeah, I think people are, this is like pretty standard now, so that we're ready for the next level. So you started your company, you said United Space Structures about a year ago, right? Right.
Yeah, we actually incorporated July of this year, but we were very actively starting to work on this idea last October. So it's been a year.
So, and I'm assuming the team members are they all in the same area or are they, scattered about?
None of us live in the same state. So
Really?
Chris is in Chris is in Texas, and his the person he's going to be working with, who's going to be a project manager, he's also in Texas, in Houston. But other than that, I'm here in the Washington D.C. area. Uh, James, our lawyer, is in Pennsylvania right now, but he's having to move back to New York City. Um, Scott is living in New York, used to work in New York City, and now he's working out of his home in Long Island. So, it's all remote, it's all virtual,
Mhm.
and it all works fine. And I think the key to making that work is consistency and the frequency of communication and setting expectations every time you communicate, and you have to communicate effectively, right?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I would agree. And it's amazing. I mean, just by the nature of what you do, you would think remote would be just second nature, right? Because what you're building is the ultimate remote, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so you got to eat your dog. And another question, I mean, just about what you do. I mean, are you talking to Elon Musk and SpaceX about? I mean, that seems like a natural partnership.
I've I'm we've talked to SpaceX, signed an NDA, can't really
Yeah.
go into a lot of detail. Talked to Blue Origin, signed their NDA. So we're talking to a variety of people because, for one reason, is we need launch facilities, right?
Mhm.
We're not trying to boil the ocean. We don't want to get into the launch business. We're in the real estate development business, but we need to import and export people and materials and things like that eventually. And so we need somebody who can come and go. And so we need companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin and others to be able to provide that. Love to talk to Elon. I talked to him once way back 2009 when he was getting the Heinlein Award for my patent attorney at the time. And interesting guy. Very
Mhm.
dynamic. He I love the depth and breadth of his thinking. You know,
Mhm.
I'd really like to work with more people like that. He's dynamic,
Yes.
and we need more of those kind of people.
Yes. And it's interesting. I mean, like once your dream comes reality, your product. I mean, will there be cars up on the moon, or will the transportation be handled differently?
So, like our space miners, they're going to not be, going out on the surface with a pick and shovel. And, I mean, I watched the whole Apollo thing happen. I was a kid back then, and it was great. Um, but that's not going to happen in the future. You're going to have robotics that are going to do the mining, and then they're going to be teleoperating them from the safety of our facility. Now, if something breaks down or they need to go out and look at something, sure, they're gonna get into a rover. They're going to go to wherever that is, and they're going to get out if they need to, and they're going to bend the antenna so it faces the facility or whatever needs to be done. So, again, you're going to be remote working even if you're on site, right?
Mhm.
So it's an inevitable part of our future, and the sooner people get used to that, I think the better.
Well, so Bill, I want to thank you for your time today. Normally I ask a few other questions, but they really don't seem to apply to what we're talking about here today. This is the most unique podcast I've done. I've done over 150. So this is fascinating. Hopefully we can do that podcast in 10 or 11 years from now. That would be really cool.
Stay in touch, and check out our website. It's united-space-structures.com, and it's got lots of helpful information about what we're doing and what it's going to look like. And there's a 60-second video that shows, the facility and how, what kind of things are going to be in it. And so it's going to be really interesting. So if you love space and you love doing adventurous things, stay tuned, because there's much more to come.
Well, that's great. And you never know, with the price of real estate in the Bay Area, I just might be looking to relocate.
Might be cheaper on the moon.
You might be.
I mean, we're gonna build one, and then we're gonna start to use more and more lunar resources, and we're gonna build hundreds, and then we're gonna build thousands, and then we're gonna build some on Mars in the hundreds and then thousands. And so, economics 101, as availability expands, the price comes down. So, uh, initially it's going to be for the rich, but then eventually it's going to come down, and everyone's going to be able to go on a vacation on the moon.
I look forward to that day. I'm sure my kids will get to take advantage, my grandchildren. I'm hoping I do.
Well, look into life extension,
Mhm.
because you may live longer than you think.
I always tell people that, my mother's 91, and I say, I expect I'll live to 100 because of just by the advances in medicine between now and when I turn 100.
There are gene therapies that are now available through BioViva and Integrative Health Sciences, that there's 4 different gene therapies, and they're getting down to the point where, normal people can afford these things, and they're going to have amazing results. They're happening now. In fact, Liz Parrish, who's head of BioViva, she took them back in 2015, and she's looking great, and she's doing great, and not had any bad results. So, this isn't something in the future. It's happening now. Most people, it's just not on their radar.
Right. Well, it's funny because a good friend of mine actually works at a company funded by the founders of Google that is doing exactly that. They're researching extending life to 150, 200 years.
Calico. Yep.
You know it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I follow that whole market segment.
Yeah.
Aubrey de Grey, I talk with him every once in a while, and there's many people involved in this who are very, very credible, who are doing incredible work.
Yes.
And it's really a matter of a few years, not a few decades. So
yeah. And it's amazing. I mean, this guy is a guy, I play hockey and golf with him. He's just a normal guy, but he just happens to work at one of the coolest companies in the world.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of those in the Bay Area.
Yeah, there are. So keep your eyes out.
I will. And I will continue to look at your website. I'm fascinated by what you're doing.
Yeah, we show 3 sites that we're going to be looking at. We're going to do hopefully a survey mission around 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Those will be robotic survey missions, because we need to be able to see exactly how big the lava tube is.
Yeah.
Our architecture can grow either in diameter or in height. And so we need to have a profile of what that lava tube is so that we know exactly what we're going to be building. So that's going to be happening. Those sites are located on our website, and exciting times ahead.
Yes, well, Bill, I could talk to you for hours, but we both have to get back to reality on Earth. But it was great talking to you, and thank you again.
Thank you, Mark.
I have a great day.
You too.